Okay, good morning. Thank you all for being here this morning. I'm Beth McCann. I'm the elected district attorney here in Denver, and I am pleased to welcome you to the launch of our Denver District Attorney Office Conviction Review Unit. Joining me today are Deputy District Attorney Victoria Cisneros, who directs the new unit, and Dr. Gregory LaBerge, who heads our Denver Police Crime Lab. You will hear from both of them shortly. And we are also honored to have here in support Sheriff Elias Diggins from the Denver Sheriff's Department and Chief Deputy Executive Director Mary Delackey from the Denver Department of Public Safety. Your presence is truly a testament to the importance of this work, so thank you all for being here. After the prepared remarks, we'll open it up for Q&A for those of you here from the press. So I'd like to begin by telling you just how delighted I am to finally have our new conviction review unit up and running. This is something that I've wanted to do since I took office, but we've only received the budget for this in the last year. A conviction review unit is an important part of a modern prosecutor's office. Our neighbors in the 1st Judicial District, which is Jefferson County, the 18th, which is Arapahoe, Douglas, and Lincoln counties, and the 20th up in Boulder, have established these units. It is critically important to ensure that justice is done in those rare instances when someone asserts a legitimate claim of actual innocence. If the wrong person is convicted, the only beneficiary of that situation is the true offender. It's equally important to ensure that we in the prosecutor's offices are continually examining our work, learning lessons, and constantly improving. Our policies for the new unit establish specific criteria for review, including the requirement that there be a substantial basis to believe that credible evidence of actual innocence exists, and there is evidence that can actually be investigated. The unit is also going to consider sentencing reviews in limited circumstances. When a sentence is particularly out of proportion with the crime, or the punishment for the crime has changed significantly since the conviction, the unit will investigate all the circumstances of the case to determine if there is any reason to review that sentence further. And we have listed the specific criteria for sentence review in our protocols and policies. In addition, this unit will also review the applications for clemency that we get from the governor's office. So whenever an inmate, prisoner, and they can actually have been released, but they ask for clemency or a pardon, the governor's office requests input from the DA's office where the crime was committed. And we've been reviewing those since I started, but the numbers are increasing, and we now have a specific unit that can help us look at those clemency requests. You will find that there are conviction review units in DA's offices, big and small, urban and rural, all across the country. Victoria has consulted locally and nationally to determine the best practices. In preparing for today, we sought the advice and input of many experts working in the field, including John Holloway, who is the executive director of the Quattrone Center for the Fair Administration of Justice, which is located in the University of Pennsylvania. And that is a national research and policy hub that was created to catalyze long-term structural improvements to the U.S. criminal justice system. And Mr. Holloway said the following when he was asked about our new conviction review unit. The structure of the Denver DA's new unit and its collaborations with defense attorneys and responsible innocence organizations is an important gesture of DA McCann's commitment to accuracy and dedication to justice. I appreciate his remarks. So the heavy lift of this work was going to fall on the qualified and experienced shoulders of Deputy DA Victoria Cisneros. She is formerly an attorney with our appellate unit here in the office, which means she is very familiar with post-conviction reviews, which often involve issues concerning innocence. But also it means this will not impact our ability to conduct trials in our regular prosecution of criminal behavior. By her taking on this assignment, we are not removing a deputy DA from our line attorneys who are in the courts every day fighting crime. She is also our office's representative with a group called the New Prosecution Leaders of Now. Victoria will ensure that we are complying with the proper procedures, and she will monitor any outside reviews that we ask for and testing of the evidence. She and our investigator, Norm Villalpando, who has 28 years of law enforcement experience, 17 of which are here in the Denver DA's office, and 11 of which were with the Lakewood Police Department. The two of them will work hand in glove with the Denver Police Department Crime Lab to ensure accuracy. So Victoria will have a full-time investigator. Mr. Villalpando will be assigned to her, and they will begin their work. They've actually already begun their work, but they will be moving forward. And I'd now like to ask Victoria to say a few words.
Hello. Before I dive into the details of the new Conviction Review Unit, I'd like to take a moment to thank DA McCann for this opportunity. Prior to going to law school, I provided administrative support within the defense community. And as my career advanced, I realized that the best way to effect change and fight for justice meant becoming a prosecutor. Because of this background, as well as my work as an appellate attorney, I understand the concerns and the legal issues surrounding this topic. Since the beginning of the year, I have been busy developing policies and protocols, meeting with stakeholders, including members of the defense community, the Quarry Wise Innocence Project, the Quattrone Center, and others, to lay the foundation for a successful conviction review unit. And so, I'm pleased to announce the Denver DA's Conviction Review Unit is now open for business. In starting this unit, I knew that the goals should be reliability, accuracy, and integrity of our convictions. Our duty as prosecutors to seek fairness and justice does not end at sentencing. Instead, we must seek justice, not just convictions. We will take every step to ensure that the reviews are done with sensitivity and discretion. We will consult with our office's victim advocates to ensure that communications with victims and victim family members is handled appropriately and empathetically. We understand that any time a conviction is under review, it has the very real potential of giving false hope to a defendant and their supporters, and of re-traumatizing victims and their loved ones. It's because of these sensitivities that these reviews will only be undertaken when there is a clear, legitimate claim of innocence and there are clear steps that can be taken to test that assertion. It's critical that confidentiality be preserved while this work is completed. As of this morning, on our website's homepage, denverda.org, all of the information about the Conviction Review Unit is live. It also has the application that will be used to begin the process, and those applications will also soon be placed in DOC's libraries. As DA McCann said, Investigator Villalpando and I will be working in two main areas, and I'll walk you through those in a bit more detail. First, with claims of actual innocence, we will consider cases where the conviction was obtained in Denver, there's a plausible claim of actual innocence, there's a substantial basis to believe that credible evidence of innocence exists, the claim is not frivolous, and the applicant is alive. Second, for resentencing, we will consider cases where the applicant has served more than 10 years and is over the age of 50, the applicant has served more than 15 years and is over the age of 35. The applicant is serving a sentence on a non-crime of violence habitual count, or the applicant has a documented serious medical condition or is terminally ill. It's worth noting that sex assault convictions are not eligible for sentencing review. This work is going to require a lot of us, but it's also going to require us to work closely with the Denver Crime Laboratory when additional testing is needed. And we're so fortunate to have such a strong partnership that allows us access to a state-of-the-art certified lab. We appreciate the support of Director LaBerge in this endeavor. And I'd like to again thank you, DA McCann, for this opportunity. And now I'll turn it over to Director LaBerge.
Thank you, Victoria, and DA McCann for inviting us to be present today. Our crime laboratory at the Denver Police, the collaboration with the District Attorney's Office goes back to probably our inception in the 1940s. I've been around for about 26 years, going on 27 years here, and been involved in several projects that have involved burglaries, cold cases notably, and much of what we're planning to do here follows on that history of excellence dealing with old type cases. What we want to bring to the table really is the quality assurance that the laboratory can bring forth. We've been accredited since 2005 under the ISO standards, ISO 17025, which is a world standard. And really we can provide that excellence in scientific support with review of evidence and the things that we've done for 20 years now on cold cases that have been very successful, one of the most successful programs in the world. So I think we bring that expertise to you. And we certainly stand firm. Victoria and I have worked for about 6 months now on other cases that are similar to what she's taking on formally now. But the crime lab has always been with you step by step with this. Often it can be difficult finding evidence, testing evidence, using new methodologies, but we stand firm in using the best technology on the planet and being sober to the results and presenting them as an unbiased fashion that we do every day. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to any questions or comments to the group.
Do we have any questions? Yes. Yeah, I thought you might want to talk to him more than me.
Okay, sorry. Right? Sure, go ahead, Neb.
How long do you guys keep evidence, and does it differ by case type?
So we keep evidence according to the current statutes, which govern the retention of evidence. I forget exactly which year. I think it went in and then it was modified. I'm thinking 7 to 8 years ago, the evidence retention. That's specifically for DNA evidence. My experience with cold cases is most of the time it's there. I can't say on any one case that it's there or not, but typically we've been successful with our cold case investigations at finding the evidence. The evidence has been retained. That's no guarantee on any given case, though. I make that proviso that we have to be cautious with statements around that.
Beth, I have a couple of questions for you. Okay. To apply to have your one's case reviewed, do all of your appeals have to have been exhausted?
That is a really good question. We typically, I think, will see cases where appeals have been exhausted. I don't think we would interfere in any case that has an ongoing appeal. So typically, yes.
So is that one of the criteria?
It is not necessarily a criteria. It will be, many of our cases come to us in a post-conviction posture, so a 35C proceeding. We might start there, but a direct appeal, I think we would wait to see how the direct appeal played out. It's still on a case-by-case basis.
Right, and obviously those can take a year. They do take years. So.
Yes.
And then do you have any sense, since you've been the DA, how many convictions have been dismissed for reasons that are laid out here?
In our office?
Yes.
We haven't dismissed any that I'm aware of after conviction at this point in the office. We have some that we have been looking at for actually a few years because they're taking time to track down witnesses and so forth. But we haven't dismissed any at this point. Or yeah.
And are you concerned, for lack of a better word, that with this announcement, your office is just going to be flooded now with requests for people looking at their cases?
Yes. We are prepared to have a number of applications come in. They do have to fill out the application, so that takes a little bit of time. But we do anticipate we will get quite a few in the beginning. So we'll see, but yes, I think we will. We will see an increase for sure. I mean, I get letters. I've been getting letters since I was elected from people who are claiming innocence, but I expect that we will see more of those now that we've officially launched.
And right now it's just one prosecutor
Yes.
dealing with it.
Yes, and one
One
investigator
investigator, yes.
who's here in the back.
Right, but one.
Yes, well, we'll see how it goes. We hope to have some interns that will help. You know, many of these cases are very old, and so pre-computer, we have boxes of files that are in paper form. So those are all stored mostly off-site, so we can bring those back in and take a look at them. But you know, there really has to be more than just I'm innocent, right? There has to be some legitimate claim and something that we can follow up on, like evidence that wasn't tested for DNA that's still available, or we have someone who maybe confesses. Doesn't mean the confession is true. I mean, that's why we have Norm. He's going to be investigating those things. But those are the kinds of situations where we might say, well, this at least warrants further investigation. And we will talk to our prosecutors if we can get hold of the people who prosecuted the cases about the case and what the evidence was and so forth. So there's a lot of preliminary review before we would actually launch a full-fledged investigation. I am aware of cases throughout the country. I have colleagues that have had cases. There was one in Kansas City, Missouri that was very interesting, where the DA was actually the proponent of dismissing the case and was getting resistance from some of the other political people. And then there was a big one in Jacksonville, Florida. We had one here in Colorado before you got here, Matt, but there was one out in Grand Junction where the fellow was found innocent through DNA, and but I'm not aware of many others around in Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, we're in Baltimore where I used to work, there have been several recently.
Yeah. We just want to have a mechanism. So if, as I said, in that rare situation where someone actually was convicted and we can show that they were innocent, then we want to have a mechanism that we can deal with that.
And then could you talk about, is there a formal partnership with your office and the Quarry Wise project?
No, well, we do actually. Do we have a memo of
Not
understanding?
a formal
Okay.
partnership, no, not so much. But we work. I meet with them and speak with them regularly, and they will likely be the biggest driving force of a lot of our cases.
Yeah, because they generally do a review as well before they even proceed with a case. But we also, Victoria put together a discovery and defense attorney kind of memorandum, so that we will have defense attorneys involved in signing. So materials are confidential, and there are other requirements that they have to comply with as we work with them. Because some of these folks will have defense attorneys that we want to make sure we're careful with how we handle evidence and so forth. Yeah.
I know clemency is just one part of
Mhm.
what the unit will do, but you mentioned that there's more clemency applications. I was just curious about why that might be happening more now.
Well, I don't know. We've been getting them since I've been the elected DA. Well, and before I was the elected DA. Clemency petitions have been part of the job, but it seems like we've had more in the last year or so. And I don't know. The governor hasn't acted on any of them recently. I mean, there was the truck driver case, and so that publicity around that case might have spurred more people to apply. But he hasn't acted on any for at least a year, other than that one that I'm aware of. But I don't know why it's increased.
If y'all have a case where an actual innocence case where, like, oh, this is actually bad, there was a mistake here, we're going to take it to the courts, will you announce that publicly?
Yes, that would be we would file a formal motion, and that would be something that the public would know about.
You mentioned a couple of cases that have taken place recently, Jacksonville and somewhere else. Have there been any cases over the course of your career, not even here, but that you've paid attention to, that have really drawn your attention to this issue, even when you were a younger lawyer?
Well, the one that happened in Grand Junction, I was in the legislature at the time, I believe. So that one was particularly interesting to me because it was kind of a local one. And we also passed, while I was in the legislature passed a bill to allow people who are wrongfully convicted to be paid, to be compensated for every year. I think it's $70,000 for every year that they are incarcerated. So that one is particularly interesting. And the one in Jacksonville, because I went to the Jacksonville DA is a friend of mine, and so she had there was a seminar down there that involved issues around conviction review. And so I did go there and visit with her, and that case was an interesting case because it was not a DNA case, and it was an old case. It was a murder. 2 guys were convicted. And she has a person in her office that could do a complete reconstruction of the house where this took place. And I mean complete. Like, he even had the same kind of pictures. I mean, it was small. It wasn't a big house, but it was a model. And he even had the same kind of pictures that were on the walls. And they did a complete reconstruction of the path of the bullets, the trajectory that that the prosecutor at the time claimed, and showed that it was impossible to have committed the crime the way it was prosecuted. And also there were alibi witnesses that had not been fully interviewed, and so there were there were extra people that were interviewed. It took, I think, a year at least for them to put that together. But those 2 men, when they got out of prison, they'd been in prison for like 40 years. So it was quite something when she did that.
You mentioned the compensation. Reminded me, were you in the ledge when Tim Masters was exonerated for Collins?
No, I think that was before my time in the legislature. Yeah.
Are you familiar with his case?
Yeah, that now that you mention it, I hadn't thought about that one recently, but that was a while ago. Yeah, so that's another example. They're very few and far between. I mean, we're in court every day prosecuting people who commit crimes, and I have full confidence in the prosecutors in this office. But sometimes evidence is discovered later, or something comes up that we didn't know about. So.
Sorry, do you guys have more questions? No. Having said that, because you've said a number of times that they're so few and far between, I assume you personally and your office has done sort of a cost-benefit analysis of forming this new unit and devoting these resources to the slim chance that you'll have an actual case where there's innocence?
Yes, I believe that it is my responsibility to make sure that we don't have an innocent person who is sitting in DOC. That is not something we want to allow to happen. And so it's worth it to have a dedicated unit that can look at these cases and make sure that we are ensuring that justice is done.
I apologize if you already
Yeah.
answered this, but what's the budget for this unit?
Right now, it's about $220,000. As I said, we're hoping to have interns help us too, that we can get from the law schools. But yeah, I mean, well, I have a $28 million budget, so it's a small piece, but it's an important piece. But certainly the vast majority of our work here is prosecuting criminal behavior. Yeah.
Someone I think said that you expect most applicants to have a defense attorney.
Not necessarily, no. Some of them will. And sometimes we may ask a defense attorney if they will take on a case if we feel like there is more potential there, because it's helpful to us to have an attorney involved, actually, because it's just cleaner and easier.
Because I was just wondering, I guess, if you're working with like the Quarry Wise project, if someone else has already done a lot of the hard work, but
Mhm.
I guess it depends. You might be doing it all yourself, looking at the evidence.
Yeah, like with the Quarry Wise, they sometimes have done work, and they generally do some filtering of cases. So they bring us cases where they really think there is some legitimate claim. So that's very helpful.
Have they brought anything yet to your attention?
Yes, we're working on a couple of cases with them now that we've been working on for a while. Anything else? Okay, thank you all. Thank you for coming. Group shot.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I haven't met you, I don't think. What's your name?
Oh, I'm Sean from Denver Post. Yeah, I see you every day.
Yeah. I don't know if we've actually met. You're welcome.